Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Am I
Good
audible?
evening.
Yeah, Shraddha, welcome, welcome.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So
We'll
we will
start at
start
7
at
o'clock.
7 p.m.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just, downloading PPT. 1 second.
So is my video visible?
No, ma'am, I can't see it.
How come? Let me check it out. Now just check it out.
No, ma'am, it's not visible.
Now?
No, no. Yeah, I can see it now.
PPT is visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we'll
Yes, sir.
start. Yeah, sure, sure. I'm just.
आने मत दो यार। वैसे जिंदगी में परेशानियां कम है।
Good evening, all of us. So we will start in the next 2 minutes, exactly at 7 p.m. Good evening, Shraddha ma'am. With your permission, we would like to begin. Shraddha ma'am, we can't hear you.
Yes, Amit, I'm there. Yes, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Uh, Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Amit, and I welcome you all for this second day of capacity building program on POSH Act. And I request all the participants to welcome to join me in welcoming Dr. Shraddha Rajput, who is going to deliver today's lecture on sexual harassment at workplace. Ma'am is an assistant professor of law at Hidayatullah National Law University, New Raipur, and she specializes in constitutional law and legal order. She has 13 years of teaching experience, and she has done her PhD in law from the same university on relevance of fundamental duties and contemporary India, a critical analysis. She has received GD Deshpande Gold Medal, and she has been invited by different institutions for POSH training and awareness sessions. And she has recently published her book on women's rights and duties. We welcome you, ma'am, and request you to enlighten all of us. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Amit. Thank you very much for such a good introduction, I would say. And let me start with the program. So, good evening, everyone. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude to Sundarnath Law College, Kolkata, GNLU, and Pro Bono India, Dr. Kalpesh Kumar Gupta, sir, for giving me an opportunity to speak on a most essential topic of this program. I really say that this is having a very different way in which I take this particular topic. So, there are two reasons I would like to say that I'm a part of this program in two capacities, I always say. Because I have been a part of a first edition also, I have been a part of this edition also. I say I always participate in two capacities, as a participant also and as a speaker also, because when I am in a role of a participant, I get to know so many things. And when I say that I'm here as a speaker, that is a way in which I will really communicate with you people when it comes to sexual harassment at workplace. And as a participant, I will learn so many things from the session. I always say it's a kind of a revision, because when you talk about sexual harassment and issues dealing with that, I always feel whatever you gain is less than what you require. So I feel somewhere I have learned a lot from the previous program, which was conducted on the same subject. And obviously yesterday's lecture also, I could get more insight with regard to whatever we have been doing with regard to sexual harassment. And second, as a speaker, I feel that this is a proper platform, because when I speak mostly in the institution where I have been a part of internal committees, I always have a limitation in bringing the topic more elaborately. There is a time constraint, obviously here also there is, but when you talk about this thing, people always feel that let people not get more sensitized to these issues. Why? Because they are not able to find out what is the difference between the cases they should bring to ICC. So most of the time I get that one clause saying that, ma'am, just be limited to the things. Why? Because most of the time people won't understand here what you are exactly talking about. So that is a reason concern is that there should be no fake cases that should be brought in when you talk about this particular point. So what I feel I landed with this particular platform because of this thing, and that was one of the reason I really requested, sir, so let us work on this particular topic. Why? Because I can at least bring some insights with regard to this. Now when I talk about
Yes,
my
ma'am,
session.
one second. So as I, communicated yesterday that Dr. Shraddha suggested in our communication related to this program, and then this thing happened last year in August. So thank you very much for you. And yesterday also you gave me a couple of ideas. So hopefully we'll be executing in near future. So thank you very much. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I feel that this is the platform where we can really communicate the people of every level. I say it may be anyone who is going to contribute something to the social cause. So, this really makes me feel better when I'm a part of this platform. So now when I talk about it, I don't know how many of you have observed the topic which I have taken for this session. If you'll come across this thing, My topic, if I go in sexual harassment at workplace and overview, if you'll see somewhere, I have been bit reluctant to talk about the laws and other aspects which are dealing with this particular concept. And you can better understand, I'll restrict myself to this topic only. Okay, so before I proceed with other things, I would just say that I'm going to bring out something that will not be more of law, but that would be something that is related to society at large. And because I always feel that there are so many remaining speakers who are going to talk about how the law should be, what should be the applicability, they are specialized in their own ways. So it's not better for me to claim that I will bring it in that way. So this is one thing I would tell you all before I proceed with my topic. I request to change the slide. Amit, just change the slide.
Kalpesh sir, Kalpesh sir,
Yes,
please.
yes, it's visible. Now, before I proceed to this thing, I request everyone to be a part of this whole session actively, because I should not feel that I'm just talking to myself now. So I request you, wherever I require you all, participant, please be with me. Now, there's a simple question I will ask you. When we talk about this thing, everyone sitting over here, have you, any one of you, okay, either you or someone related to you, have experienced the sexual harassment at workplace? Second, is there, have you seen such incident? If you have, or if you, in front of you something have happened, I just tell you to raise a thumbs up, so I should get connected to you people. Either you or anyone around you. I request the participant to please be with me. Okay, good. That is very good. I get so many response. Okay. And when I say that, when we have talked about it, did you came across the person who have came front and talked about this particular thing? In front of us, most of they agree that yes, this is something that has happened, but we get very few numbers when we say that what really they have done with regard to deal with this moment. Either they have not done it, either we being a part of that, wherever we have experienced this thing or wherever we have witnessed this thing, what is our contribution to this all things? So I say, when we react to this thing, this question is really a big question, that what we do in such circumstances. And I say sexual harassment, when we talk about it, we have seen there are so many acts, and when I use the word sexual harassment, there are a lot many things that flash in our mind. We start connecting different situations, we start connecting different actions of the people when we talk about sexual harassment. You know why it is important for me to tell you this thing? Because when I say sexual harassment, for every person sitting over here, I agree with this thing, it might be something different. We're still in that line where we don't know exactly this falls under a sexual harassment or not. My perspective to take a topic with regard to this thing may be different from other perspectives. So I told you the term is generic term, which when I talk about the act, I'm very specific. But when I talk about the word, I say it's generic. It's generic. It is having a very, when I try to bring it out, it's a very broader term. And again, I still can't say that acts may make it restrictive. Why? Because we have kept the court open for the liberal interpretations. Okay, so that's a blend how this particular thing has brought in. And when I say sexual harassment, it affects mostly the social and psychological behavior of the woman who is working within and outside this whole framework. So, you can understand that sexual harassment is not going to hinder a job or a security of a woman at one side, but it is going to also affect her mentally. And that is going to cause somewhere to the potential what she is going to bring out in this particular context. So I request any person who is going to do a research on this topic, I just say that take it in the generic form first and then proceed with the specific form. Time we are not able to bring this bends. When I come across the cases, I still sit and say, okay, let me bring it under this or let me not take it under this. Okay, so still I am having this dilemma with regard to this point. So this is one of the major thing I would tell everyone. Whenever you research on this topic, please take this perspective into consideration. Now, Amit, can you just change the slide?
Yes, ma'am. Kalpesh sir is doing it.
Oh, Kalpesh sir, I just request you to change the slide, sir. Okay, till the time he changes, I would just take a few things into accord. When I say, okay, just to say, we know about the POSH Act. Is it sufficient? Come on, Irene, require your responses. Is it sufficient just to know about the act? Or we need to do something beyond that? Very good. It's not just sufficient to know about the act. There is something more beyond that. If I take the incidences which are happening all around, very good. Thank you. Thank you very much for really giving such good response. And I'm so happy I'm talking, not to the screen, but I'm talking or I'm communicating to everyone who is willing to do this particular thing. Now, see, when I talk about it, if you take an example of Mumbai teens, okay, recently, I think it was a 12 June incident where you will see a Mumbai teen was booked for a sexual harassment of a female. He verbally abused a female. She was she was in a sixth standard, and the whole thing started with an emoji which she shared on a WhatsApp group. I am not going to give you details because I feel you should research on this thing. I just told you an incident. I say just go through this incident and you'll find the interesting facts which are relating to this thing, where an emoji was considered to be a sexual harassment, okay, a communication through which this thing would have been brought in. Then if I talk about the other incidences which are there, I think if I go to upper level, when I talk about Ubisoft executives of the France, you people might have come across this incident where you will see that the major people working over there were booked against the sexual harassment aging from the year 52, 41 and 58. For me, it becomes very important to give you example of this thing, because it's not only we as when we talk about the application, when we talk about it at international level also, we face certain issues which are regarding to this point. So if you go to the incident of Ubisoft executives, or where the trial is still going on in the France with regard to the same issue of sexual harassment, you will find out a gaming industry where you will see that such kind of incidents are taking place. And if you read that particular incident, your mind will get shocked, where what happened in online meetings, what happened in majority of the things can be seen on this particular part. So you will find that there were n number of things which were brought in. Even the male organ was, they made a picture on their hands, on their body parts, and that was shown on an online meeting. So you'll find that there were so many things which can be considered as real life incidences when we come across this line. And then again, when I talk about our own country, we have a number of examples which are relating to this context. Now, for me, the incident here which I have stated are stark reminder of the societal norms we live within and the behaviors we often overlook. We don't consider them that serious. Why? Because the norms of the society are built in this matters. Many of us, okay, let me take an example of everyone who's sitting over here, maybe as a father, maybe as a brother, okay, sometimes some incident is quoted by some female. What is our reaction? ठीक है, जाने दो भाई, you don't get that serious, चलता रहता है, ये society है. Okay, so you know, these are the things which we always come across, and we see that these inappropriate actions can escalate to this level, which may be bringing serious offenses in this regard. So that is one of the things. Just making it back to the culture and turning a blind eye to these things, I think, will not solve the clause. And that is the reason what should be done at this moment is very important. I request sir to just change this next slide, sir. Okay. You can have a look to this particular slide where you will see a woman who has to perform so many duties. And I feel, okay, it's not again about a gender here now. I would say that in the changing scenario, it has been very important for us to do or to come out to perform our own duties or participate in work equally to the men's. And that is the reason why we say it's an honor, it is an honors which we take into consideration, broadly thinking that in upcoming years, we will find most of the females getting out and doing their duties. But we should not limit ourselves to the perspective of women and men. This is one thing I would add over here whenever we talk about this particular point, where I feel the act is also lacking somewhere. You will come across all these things when the topic would be dealt in, but I'll just put a slight light on this, as my topic is an overview of everything what is going to be brought in. So as individual, we need to sensitize ourselves. First of all, it's not about men and women. Men may also feel that there is a sexual harassment which has been brought in against them. You will find, if you go to the survey, you will find males have committed more suicide rather than females in such cases when they were booked for such offenses. So, that is one of the major question, and this question arises heading us to a right direction, that all these years, are we deviating from the law, or are we trying to bring ourselves to the context in which we really want to bring the law in the way it should have been brought in? So that's one of the question I keep on telling my participant, please think on these questions, because they will bring so many perspective for working on this particular topic. Now, sir, I request you to change the slides. See, when we talk about the word section so many times, and now when the question comes to us, we always associate it with acts, but it is only like this that we are going to restrict ourselves to the act only. I just request the participant to raise their thumb if they are knowing something more with regard to the origin of the word sexual harassment beyond the act. I request the participant to raise their or to respond to me if they are knowing something more with regard to the word that is sexual harassment, not in the context of the act. Okay. I asked, shall I say I'm getting very less or fewer responses now? I request everyone to at least participate. Are you knowing something more about sexual harassment rather than the act? Okay, very good. Okay. Sania, we will talk. I think she raised and again she has lowered the hand. Okay. I'll be proceeding with this thing. For me now, it's very important for you to bring that how the origin of the word sexual harassment have taken place. So I request you to change the slides. So just have a look to this slide. Okay, one slide, it has been bombarded with so many names which are very heavy and so many incidences that have taken place with regard to the movement which was brought in the context of sexual harassment. That is the historical development. Now see, when we talk about the practice of sexual harassment, it's a centuries old practice. Please try to understand what I'm saying. It's a practice been traced centuries back. I'm not talking about the law, or I'm not talking about the act. So when we talk about it, if we define sexual harassment, unwanted sexual relations which are imposed by the superiors or subordinates at work. This was how we took the word sexual harassment in the beginning. Like, let me give you an example for this thing, which will make the things more clear. Now see, when I say sexual coercion was an entrenched feature of a cattle slavery, which was brought in by the African American woman without protection of law. While there were certain crucial differences in the situation of a free woman and the woman which was employed under the domestic services. So you can understand women here, when I talk about, they are again divided into two contexts. One, women who are employed, that is free women employment, and second, women who are specifically working as a domestic workers. So you will see commonly these people had faced certain sexual advances commonly against them. Whatever has been brought in when they used to work in a household at their workplace was taken into consideration. So if I give you this example, I can say sexual harassment was something that was a social practice. Now social practice have lives. Please remember this thing, what I'm saying. Social practices have lives. There are two lives, I say: institutional lives and semiotic lives. I just say semiotic lives and institutional lives. Institutional lives, what we talk about when I say sexual harassment at workplace, specifically with regard to law. And when I say semiotic lives, first of all, tell me how many of you are knowing this term, that is semiotic lives? Okay. Okay. Now see, when I say semiotic life, semiotics is a study. It's a study of signs and symbols and their use in interpretation in communication. What I am telling to you, it was practiced as a social practice. Sexual harassment है social practice बोलकर we have taken into account. Okay. Now what I say, every such practices have two lives. Institutional lives जो उसे जिंदा रखता है, and next thing is when we talk about it, the next point which we regard to semiotic lives. Semiotic lives mean, just now I told you, it's a study of the signs and symbols and how we are going to use those things to communicate. Okay, so if I take it in this way, जैसे ही system change हो जाएगा, my communication will change, and as soon as my communication changes, the meaning of the word also changes. So language, visual elements or cultural practices will change what is sexual harassment. What is sexual harassment at this particular place may not be considered as a sexual harassment in another place. So you have to understand this thing. Why? Because that's one of the major thing you will come across whenever we talk about this law. So here you have to remember semiotics. When I talk about them, this would be how the interactions are taking place among each others and what with this individual to shape and understand the communication which is going on within a society. I go to a society which is very free society and I just call my person randomly in a different way, which I do not convey when I am a part of this society. I'm not wrong at both the places. What is different is how you're living that particular thing. So social practices like sexual harassment have histories. And considering sexual harassment history, when I talk about the historical perspective, it allows us to always bring the fundamental questions about what are the nature of these practices, how it enabled, what were the rules which were brought in, what were the constraints that were talked into. So we took both the efforts, national and international efforts, when we talk about sexual harassment as a single meaning of what constitutes prohibiting a behavior of an individual which a woman is not welcoming is nothing but sexual harassment. अब इसे सिमोइटिक लाइव्स में भी डालकर देख लो और इंस्टीट्यूशनल लाइव्स में भी डालकर देख लो and you get a broad perspective of sexual harassment. So this is one of the major thing I really wanted to point out to you people. Whenever you do a research, please bring this perspective. Now second thing what I say, what was sexual harassment before 1970s? भाई बहुत बात कर ली 2013 act की. This is what everywhere you will see people talking about 2013 and the act. Okay, but what was the status of this term, that is sexual harassment, in before 1970s? We find a reference of this particular word in a Helen Campbell's 1887 report on women wage, जहाँ डायरेक्टली ये वर्ड नहीं यूज किया गया था, but what they stated that workers involving the common understanding that household services have become synonymous with the worst degradation that comes to a woman. Okay, this was a line she has used first time in 1887 report. And when you talk about it, before that we don't get a direct instances of the term, that is sexual harassment. So Campbell also described in some details the form of sexual extortion practices upon women, specifically related to those women who are working in the factories of the garment industry. एक wave आया था, you will get on the net so many pictures that are related to garment industries where women was projected in a very different form. So the word sexual harassment was not directly used and nobody brought it in such a broader way, considering it as an offense against a woman. So in that case, the conduct of that sort was related to the offenses against women, but not in a direct sense. So, which prevailed in society for this particular proof as a presence of this conduct in the records. You will find stories, you will find articles and books also where you will see the woman was projected in this way. But officially, again, I say this was a base where the lawful record was taken into consideration to bring out what exactly the sexual harassment is. So you'll also find few researchers have started to look at sexual harassment for occurrence of certain sort of practices that are presently called as sexual harassment. We get a reference of this thing also. So sexual harassment, which is associated with a long history, is reported in different records. Now, as I told you, something really brought in a contribution to this thing is industrial transformation. Okay, expansion of the quantities and expansion of the quality of the work of a woman outside her households. So that was one of the major concerns somewhere affected in progressively bringing the term that is sexual harassment. Now, I'll just go after 1970s, you will find that first time the word which was related to this, the major development with regard to the word sexual harassment were taken in. So when we talk about women acting as a part of a social movement, speaking about their experiences as a woman at a work, okay? So legal activist, if you people might have heard her name, and I request you to again have a research on this topic, that is Catherine McKinnon. So is generally credited for creating the laws surrounding sexual harassment. Okay, she has written a book in 1979. That book was entitled as Sexual Harassment of Working Women. And she used the term that appeared in 1973 report about discrimination called Saturn rings by Mary Robb. She was her PhD, when she was doing her PhD, she brought this particular time. And at the time, Robb was the special assistant of president and the chancellor for women and work at her institute, that is MIT. Due to her efforts at the institute, the university was one of the first large organization to develop certain policies that were Rove said that harassment movement in the place was being discussed at different groups in the university at that particular time. If you talk about the Cornell University, now again an instructor, that is Lynn Fairley, discovered that women in a discussion group repeatedly described certain issues, like they were fired from their job, they were quitting their jobs, and because of this thing, somewhere it was brought in that there is some kind of a harassment going against the women. So she and her colleague, all of them came together, they coined the term that is sexual harassment to describe such problems that generated certain things. And interest was taken at a larger level, and you will see Speak Out in 1975 was one of the movement which was brought in to show that yes, this is something which is going on in that particular level. Now she has, again, when I talk about Lynn Fairley, she has described the sexual harassment at the length when she gave a testimony before the New York City Human Rights Commission. And then she has talked about how the things were taken into account. And she also wrote a book on that, Sexual Shakedowns, the sexual harassment at the women on the job. So, at this point, we are all introduced with harassment all through the workplace, and the term sexual harassment itself grew out of the consciousness. So again, when I say sexual harassment is an all-inclusive issue that has got the consideration worldwide, and it is very important for us to know how it really started. And then when we talk about India, again, there are certain concerns which are brought in with regard to the women movement, which were not so actively brought in as a part of the movements that are connected to sexual harassment in our country. Now, during 1980s, if I talk about militant actions which were brought in against the forum operation of women, in Mumbai specifically, you will see that sexual harassment of nurses was seen over here. This was also one of the point which raised at a lot. By nurses, it was not only the public and private hospitals, but they were sexually harassed by the patients, their relatives, ward boys, and other official staffs. And same way you will find in every sector this movement was going on. It may be the air hostesses, it may be in the level of the this colleges and universities universities. So you will find that this word started getting more publicity. But again, as I told you, it was not lifted more by the women activists. So somewhere again, the suppression to this context was taken accord. So when we talk about working women and the strategic actions that are taken in sexual harassment at workplace, we always need to work more on this thing. I'll mention you one more thing. Just give a read to this point. Balanchi Sad, okay, this is a woman voice in Goa which mobilized public opinion against the chief minister, who was alleged with regard to harassing a secretary. And you know, this movement was one of the movement which was counted in development of sexual harassment, or bringing a law against a sexual harassment. So you'll see that due to this movement, the CM resigned, and then all the incidents have taken place. So in 1990, somewhere you will find a PIL was filed and amendments were brought in with regard to rape laws. And, you know, where it was very narrowed in a form of penile penetration into the female organ. We went somewhere broader to this particular concept, and we saw that sexual violence against women should be also a part of the laws which were brought in or which were shaped up at that particular time. So I request you to change the slide. Okay, now if you see here, I have given certain I'm sure about this particular thing. But you know, when we talk about Vishakha's case, before that also there were certain incidences that have taken place, not exactly in the form of the cases, but in the form of the actions that were taken against certain individuals. Just give me a thumbs up if you are knowing or just communicate with me if you're knowing any incident from above whatever has been provided in slide. Very good. Okay. Very nice. If you read out this incidences, which is again with regard to Rupam Deo Bajaj and IAS officer. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm getting so many responses. Most of you are knowing about this thing. You know, what is the reason why I brought this particular incidences over here? I just need to communicate one thing to you. I need to communicate one thing to you, that nowhere we had a strict law which was dealing with sexual harassment. Whenever a sexual harassment used to take place, we need to move to the police just to report the case. You know, so you might have come across, as you have shown me a very pretty good response with regard to this thing. The application of IPC can be seen very well brought in Rupam Deol Bajaj case. Okay, you will find that where a senior officer was alleged of sexual harassment by the superior officer. Okay, and you know, for that reason, you will find that a complaint was filed against that particular person. They have to go to police and they have to bring out these all things. So you will find here that still the law was not brought in a very broader way, but still we had certain incidences before Vishakha's case. Now I request her to move to the next slide. You know, this is one thing I really want to get you a break with regard to the historical part we were drilling. I just quote the words of Maya Angelou. Each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing it possibly, without claiming it, she stands up for all women. You know, this is a very heavy sentence. I say this thing because, you know, if I'm standing for my rights, it's an individual right. But always remember, as a constitution teacher, I will always tell you this thing ki individual right somewhere contributes to the collective rights. Okay, because collection is nothing but individual coming all together. So you know, it's like by I'm not going to benefit myself for this thing, but I'm going to benefit everyone if I fight for my rights. You know, we have a very good example of Nirbhaya in this case, where the entire country was seen getting in together. We have an example of Calcutta also with regard to the medical case that have taken place. You know, so that is one of the things which we should keep in mind. If I'm going to fight against injustice, I'm not going to fight against anyone who would be brought in one form, but I will be following the collective justice whenever I talk about it. So if you see this incident, sir, I request you to move to the next slide, sir. Again, I'll not talk more about Bhauri Devi's case, but again, if I won't take her name, I feel I cannot bring out a statement which was given by Maya. So I just say she was a woman who stood for everybody's right. Somewhere she did not, or she never thought that how she's going to bring in. Yesterday, ma'am has covered this particular point very deeply, but I'll add certain things over here. I feel that this is something I should bring out. See, when we talk about Bhauri Devi, she again did not give up her fight for injustice that was caused to her. And when you see this particular situation, or now, as I think that yesterday ma'am have covered this thing, I'll just complete one particular part which was left out, I think, due to time constraint by ma'am. If you go through the reports, if you go through the newspaper readings or cutouts, which are available on the net, you will find that there are certain facts which are very surprising. Okay, I say, when you read it, you get too many shocks with regard to what happened. 52 hours after she was raped, a conducted violation of her rights, okay, wherein it should be conducted within 24 hours. When we talk about writing her complaint, most of the bruises and scratches were not mentioned as a part of the complaint. For me, it's very important to bring this thing, because देखो procedural flaws क्या होते हैं, okay? We need to understand where we land. Most of the cases in the sexual harassment cases, or incidences, you will understand this thing, that procedure really brings out a very major change in dealing with these cases. So I would just tell you this thing, that several things were left out from the complaints, and physical discomfort was created, and even that was not mentioned as a part of a complaint. So most of the newspaper, that is local newspaper, reported this particular thing, and a plight was brought in, and that was the reason why the case was handed to CBI. And in a year, these 5 people were arrested also, and they were charged with different they were charged with the major things that were relating to harassment or assault with regarding to this down. But again, I say, this was not the end of the story. Everything went downhill when you talk about Bhauri Devi's case. These people who were brought in a trial, they were not accused of the charges of rape. Okay, instead of that, they were accused of the charges like guilty or lesser punishment, or offenses which were brought in, like conspiracy and other things. Okay, so after this, the judgment really created, because a cognizance was taken by NGOs, that is Vishaka, and most of the things were brought in. So when you talk about this particular case, you will come across certain very different facts which were brought in. Okay, so like, see, there were certain reasons which were given in a report. There cannot be a rape in a village. Village is not a place where a rape can happen. Okay, second thing is, men of different caste cannot participate in gang rape. You come across this statement whenever you read her whole major work that has been brought against her. So a member of a higher caste cannot rape a member of a different caste. So there were certain allegations which were, and how could a husband just sit and watch her wife getting raped? And elderly men do not rape. So this was highlighted by NGO in this particular case, and the top court took cognizance of everything, and we get a very enlarged guidelines with regard to the major things that are dealing with Vishaka. So I request you to change the slide. Again, when I talk about Vishaka, I'm not going to deal with this case in detail. You will come across this thing, and I just want to avoid the repetition with regard to this part. Now see, so I request you to change the next slide. For me, this is an interesting topic where I need to work on that. So I request you to change it. Again, sir, change. Yes, sir, you can change. I have, yes, sir, I require this slide, because I have to take time also into consideration. So I'm not touching that part, because I know you will listen more about Vishaka's case. Now see, what I need to tell about it. How many of you have really read about the aftermath of Vishaka's case? Please respond to me. Okay. Mixed response. Very good. As a law student, as a law person being associated with law, I always tell you, very nice. I'm getting more responses. I'm so happy I am able to communicate you people. Yes. Would suggest one thing. We read about cases, but we never look about the aftermath of the case. And that is the reason I told you I'll talk about this particular thing. Initially, implementation of Vishakha guideline was uneven and it was inconsistent across various sectors. बहुत सारी चीजें court लेकर आया था. But due to this major things, we were not able to bring out that what really we wanted and how we are going to proceed with these guidelines. Okay, so you will see the aftermath was very different with regard to this point, and that is the reason why I say trace a case in a full form. If you are reading a case, always read the aftermath with regard. Initially, we faced so many problems which were related to these sectors, and many organizations were either unaware of the guidelines, and even if they were some at certain level they were unaware, and people who were knowing it, they ignored it for a reason. And that was one of the things. Due to the lack of concrete enforcement mechanism, we saw that there were certain PILs which were again filed in, and the increased activism for women rights specifically have taken place. And then we landed up with the act which we are talking about. Now, see, if you will observe this slide, you will talk about three major things, that is corporate sector response after Vishakha's case. It was larger corporations and multinational companies quickly adopted the Vishakha guidelines, and they incorporated these particular guidelines as a part of their corporate policies. Okay, they established the ICCs, and they even started conducting the awareness programs for the employees. When I talk about public sector and government compliance, and obviously it was very positive response. Different people regarding different department, they set up the complaints committee, and they framed certain policies with regard to sexual harassment. And the pace of implementation, we varied over this, okay, which was different at different level. In different states, it was somewhere actively brought in, and again at certain levels or departments, you would not see that people started participating more with regard to awareness or being a part of these all policies. Now, when I talk about educational institutions, so universities and colleges, they began to have certain setups with regard to complaint and committees. And UGC also played a very vital role with regard to directives to ensure the compliance of these guidelines. One more thing, I always try to give you message with regard to this thing. I always say, if you are a part of an office, if you are a part of a department, university, wherever you are, I request you people to just have a look whether you get the guidelines again somewhere in your institution or not. Okay, because one of the guidelines is that they should be displayed at a place where everyone can see them. I request you, just have a look around your own offices or your own areas wherever you are working, and whether they are placed or not. If not, I request you, please request the institutions to display those guidelines, because this is one thing I can contribute as a part of this whole structure. So that's one thing I'll bring in. I request sir to move to the next slide, sir. Now see, government took different initiatives. She-Box platform. I'll not talk about what is She-Box now. Again, as I say, there are many people who would be talking about this thing, but it was an effort which was taken by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India. It provided a single window access to every woman, irrespective of her work status, whether they are a part of organized or unorganized private or public sector. And this was something which was facilitate that they can register their complaint relating to sexual harassment. And any woman, I'm not talking about now a specification, I'm saying any woman facing sexual harassment at workplace can register their complaints through She-Box. And recently, I think before 2 months back, 2-3 months back, the ministry has also talked about appointing the nodal officers who are working, who are a part in every institution, who are a part dealing with the She-Box. Okay, so you will find certain nodal officers also. Some of the institution have really brought them in whenever we talk about it. So this is one of the platform where you will see directly we can have a concern with regard to whatever is happening against us with regard to the jurisdiction, that here we don't need to worry about that. And that is the reason why I feel that SheBox is one of the platform which is very much essential, and we should create awareness of this SheBox as much as we can. Then again, I say to ensure the safety and security of women at all workplaces, you will find that there were a number of things which were brought in by the ministry. Again, it talked about what? It talked about the awareness raising exercises from the provisions of the act. Also, we tried to bring quarterly reports. We talked about the training programs, and we talked about a number of things. I will be a bit different at this particular level talking about it. I feel just bringing the programs are not sufficient. We need to work at the initial level. Because I will tell you two things. When I talk about SheBox, I have been a part of a few committees. I say few, and one of the major thing I see here, they come, people who are associated with these committees, they come and question me, ma'am, what is this SheBox? You know, they are a nodal officer and they are questioning us, ki, what is the SheBox? And then I just say, ki, this is what is going to happen. If you're not making them aware about this thing, if you're not giving them a proper training, how could one expect that they are going to work on that? So, you know, this is the reason I say ki, when you work for or when you work as a part of this whole issue, you need to see where we are lacking in when we talk about this thing. And when I talk about conducting workshops and everything, I say it's not just to, we should take it as a message that we are a part of this thing and we are going to bring out something that will change the perspective of everything that is going to be a part of this thing. You know, I'll just share with you an incident. I think I should. Whenever I go to take few these lectures on sexual harassment issue, I'll always find women sitting in the front seats and men sitting in the back seat and busy with their mobiles. And then I just go to them and I just question them in my session only. Why do you feel that this topic is not related to you, or you never want to listen about this particular topic? And you know, then you get a response which is very different. Like everybody will say, "Ki nahi, ma'am, ye to kya hai? This is for women and everything." But I say, rather than sensitizing women more about it, it's a time to sensitize men also equally with regard to this issue. And then you come across this point. So that is the reason I shared with you. This mentality should be changed at a specific level. When you talk about my kid should, as I am having a son, I should say that I make him aware about this thing. He's just 6 years old, and I always talk him about respecting the woman, dignity of women. Why? Because I feel I complete my responsibility at that particular hour when I'm making my son realize this thing from the beginning. And that is the reason I perform my work in this particular way. So I request you, if you're a part of that, all the males, don't think that it is related to women, because you are associated with us and you are there to protect us at every instance. So it may be your sister might require it, your wife may require it, anyone around you may require this particular thing. So please come out of that mindset ki women or men. I say no, equally we are standing together and we will fight together with regard to this point. And now I'll also talk about a code of conduct at workplace, which was brought in or formulated by National Commission for Women in 1998 to secure justice for the women, safeguard the rights, and promote women empowerment. Okay, so I am mentioning this code of conduct over here because, you know, most of the time we just keep on going with the act and then we feel ki bhai itna broad ho raha hai, aa kahan se raha hai. So, you know, there are certain things which are supporting the act also. 1998 ka, that is National Commission for Women, they brought this conduct, formulation of this conduct. It was according to the Vishaka guidelines only, and it was brought in by the ministries, and different NGOs were brought in to be a part of this thing, and they created more awareness with regard to the corporate sector and other part. Now see, when we talk about Vishaka's guideline, the initiative of holding meetings at different organization and everything was brought in. And if you trace this thing, there were active 33 such meetings which took place after Vishaka's case. Okay. And you will see around 800 plus organization attended those meeting, and that was one of a good response. Okay, in specific period of time, if you are able to bring out this thing, that was something which was welcome at every level. And this was one of the major thing. That is the reason I mentioned you a code of conduct for workplace. I request you all to just go through this code, and you will get a number of things bit similar to what we have seen in guidelines, but again, it's a broader concept which has been brought under this part. So I request you to change the slides. Now see, coming to this part, that is there are certain cases I have brought in. Again, that is something which will be brought in by the next resource person, but I'll just highlight few things which are talked more whenever you talk about this cases, that is Apparel Export Promotion Council versus AK Chopra. Please remember, here I'm not talking about the details of the case because that will be dealt by the next speaker, but I'm just highlighting here what is my perspective. In this case, you will find one particular thing, that is the judgment has specifically mentioned it is time to broaden the definition of sexual harassment. And it should be not related only to the physical contact, but it is essential to bring this particular act in such a way that it may create or cover majority of the perspective that are related in this instances that are with regard to sexual harassment. So for me, referring this case is only to give you a broader perspective of what sexual harassment is and how the definition can be enlarged, taking the time into consideration. Now see, when we talk about the next case, that is Medha Kotwal Lele versus Union of India, again I'm talking about the interpretation part only, where I'll say you the Supreme Court somewhere have brought in the guidelines that were related with regard to the major issue that whatever has been stated by Vishaka's case has not been followed by it. And the court came with a very good initiative that monitoring is always required. So a monitoring mechanism should be brought in. And in this judgment, you will observe that the court has been very elaborative in talking about the implementation part. यहाँ interpretation ना implementation पे दिया गया था, rather than going with the definition of the term that is sexual harassment. So you can understand the perspective is getting enlarged with the help of the court also. And that was a major thing which was brought in by these cases, and I have brought in as a part of this thing. I don't know how many of you would be knowing this thing, but whenever you deal with the sexual harassment, we also read different laws that are associated in this context. Like there should be a service rule that should be taken into account. Procedural part, I think again the other speaker will be dealing it, but in this case the court has specifically mentioned about the rules, that is central civil rules that should be taken into consideration. I request to bring the next slide, sir. See, now this is something I feel I keep on telling my student, don't forget the timeline. It's very important when it comes to this thing. By 2013 we never landed up directly. It was a whole procedure that was followed in. So that is one thing. Amit, my time just make me aware of that. Okay, you came back and I'm like, just after I have not exceeded my time.
No,
So
ma'am.
please make me aware.
Sure. I will remind you.
Okay, thank you. Now, see, when I talk about the first thing that is related in this context is 1992. I'll start from that timeline. I'm talking about a legislative timeline here. I request everyone now just observe the change that has been brought in and which was a step-by-step change. 1992, an incident that really brought the change. That is Bhauri Devi's incident, gang raping. Her case have really sent a shockwaves across the nation. Okay, that was an issue which really spotlighted the term that is sexual harassment. Second, 1997, we are coming with a movement where we will talk about the Vishaka's case. In this case, the court led the guidelines, and this guideline really became 2013 Act, and the government took a major initiative with regard to National Commission for Women. Government requested them to draft a legislation which was dealing with this part. So a number of the issues were seen by NCW and they drafted it, and this draft was taken into consideration as a fresh draft which was dealing with the sexual harassment cases. And you know what was a again, I say this is how the law has been, or law should be brought in. When we were dealing with this whole issues, we also invited, that is, we, I say, government also invited different women organization to being a part of the committee. Okay, so you will see Majlis. I think you people might have heard the name about Majlis. If yes, please respond. Have you heard about the women organization like Majlis? Okay, if not, people, I request you to go through them because they really contributed a lot. Majlis is again a women lawyers association with regard to a different issue that were brought in. But I say again, due to time constraint, I'll not go to the basic thing. But they have also contributed a lot with regard to the labor laws part also. So I say ki, we invited them because what problem they dealt at the ground level should be also addressed to be a part of this draft, and that was a better contribution that was brought at this level. Then you will see states at their level also contributed a lot to if we talk about 200 year, you will see the Andhra Pradesh Women Commission. It reported that the sexual harassment, okay, they released a copy of a sexual harassment, receiving that there was a major change which was seen with regard to dealing with the cases that were encountered as sexual harassment. So, contribution of these people started growing, and Supreme Court also time and again, if I talk about 2006, 2007, where you will see that definition of the term that is with regard to sexual harassment, Supreme Court stated that it's time now to enlarge this scope, okay, that was dealing with this term, that is sexual harassment. So, the draft of protection of women against sexual harassment bill was brought in. It was approved in 2007, 2008. Again, you will see that National Commission for Women, they published a report of sexual harassment in educational institution. They shedded some light with regard to the female students who are facing sexual harassment by teachers and the staff. Okay, and at the end, 2010, we introduced a bill. 2012, we amended the bill, and again, it was reintroduced on September 3rd, 2012. The sexual harassment bill, again, it was passed, and again, it was brought in front of us by the Rajya Sabha in 2013, and again you will see the president gave their assent, the whole procedure that was followed in. Okay, so you'll see the effectiveness of this thing was taken in two forms. Okay, whenever we read this thing, we have to always read POSH Act and POSH rules together. Okay, so that is one of the expansion of this thing, that rules should also be covered. And 2018, I have really taken a consideration of this thing because suddenly we came across one word, that is Me Too. Okay, and everybody sitting over here might be knowing that a moment sweeps across the major countries were brought in with regard to this thing, that is Me Too, where bravely their experiences which women came across were seen in. Okay, so a pressure was created proactively to prevent certain incidences that have taken place in this regard. So, you will find that this was also one of the major movement. I'm not talking about again non-criticism which was faced in with regard to Me Too movement. So this was something that should have been traced a major change with regard to this sexual harassment. Now in 2021, you will also find that that is the Ministry of Women and Child Development. It released its guidelines for implementing the POSH Act in educational institution, and we started reinforcing the importance of the safe environment, and we started talking about major learning environments that were brought in with regard to this initiative. So I request you to change this slide. At the end, I should say I cannot end up without touching what are the challenges and the issues that are brought in implementation of this laws. Okay, I'll just share with you. So, beside this, I'll also share with you certain experiences which I personally feel are the lacunas that are dealing in and that create a problem for us to deal with the cases that are dealing with. I'll just take an example of this particular thing. There was an incident that have taken place where you will see a girl approach saying that there is a sexual harassment which has been brought in, but a girl student was there. She was working in a institution where she stated that an employee working over there has been sexually harassing her. When the employee was called in, the employee just stated that he likes that girl and he has never approached her, but he has approached her parents to talk about the girl. that he is interested in her. And like committee was just looking in and like, okay, that's how you have to deal with the issue. So I told, something, or sometime you come across certain issues which you have really not predicted, and there is a minor line of differentiation that should be drawn in when you are taking a word that is a sexual harassment. So I feel somewhere now we should be very clear about these things, that what exactly is going to be in and out when we talk about sexual harassment. Then awareness and training, again I say it's a very simple thing. Everybody sitting over here might be saying that we are lacking with the adequate awareness and training programs. Our government should indulge in major activities that are relating in addressing these all things that are related in this context. Nowadays you get a n number of things like saying be a trainer and everything, but I say the cost which they keep in front of us is so high that we sometimes say it's better not to get trained. Okay, so that's happened with me also. Okay, so I also dropped that particular plan, and then I said, okay, why to go to others? Let us bring out a change with regard to this thing. So I just say here awareness and training should be taken into. Oh, I'm so happy. Okay, I like that emoji, because that happens with us sometime. Okay, so when we talk about awareness and training, we should work on that. Then certain matters are underreported. Okay, you will find a fear of retaliation. You will find the stigma and the lack of trust in the redressal mechanism. Okay, and it is significant for us to deal with this thing. I have came across so many things when you go to the procedural part. I have seen victim coming and saying ki, we don't believe on you, we don't trust you. The only thing I question them, then why you are here? Okay, so you have to build this particular thing. Also, you need to have the training to deal with the victims. Also, you have to see why the matters are not reported, why with regard to that particular point. So, there are n number of reasons. Okay, being a part of this whole thing, I'll always see over here where parents are also reluctant to proceed with the complaint part. I request everybody sitting over here, let us stop having such attitude. Okay, at the end, what is going to be is at least we somewhere contributed in raising voice that is dealing with the sexual harassment that have taken place against someone. Okay, so it's our initiative that we should actively take part when it comes to such incidences and when it comes to bring a change. Now, second is effective mechanism or effectiveness of ICCs or LCCs when I talk about. Okay, so in some cases you will find that committees are not constituted as per guidelines. हमारे यहाँ senior ही नहीं है, we don't have this person, we don't have this thing. Most of the time you'll see composition of committee is also one of the major problem that we are facing. In people who are administrative part, they might know what exactly I'm trying to point out. So that is one thing. Our committee, even our committee is formed, there should be an impartiality that should be maintained, transparency that should be followed or brought in by the committee. So external members, you will see sometime will not get adequate training, and again then there will be a loss that will be contributed as a part of this process. So you will see the small working places when I talk about compliance of certain things or informal workplaces, they remain as a major issue. Many small business or informal sectors of employment, they are either are unaware of the law or they choose to ignore it at the same level. Okay, when you try to give them some better knowledge, they will again say ki, okay, that is how they deal with the work. So again you somewhere sit quiet and observe this thing ki, yes, this is happening all around. And then I say judicial backlogs. Okay, that's again not a topic exactly to speak on, but cases of sexual harassment often face delays with regard to this judicial system, or prolonged trauma is always seen on the mind of the victim. So that is how unfortunately you will see that sexual harassment is one of the reality, okay, that have many faces. Okay, so it's good, but at least we are trying to bring out a change with regard to such issues and that issue which is inevitable in society. So by understanding what is the impact and how to prevent it, we can create a safer and better environment. So I request you to change this line. I'll just say one thing before I wind up. I won't take your more time. I still have a time, but I wish now you people should also contribute. Let us have a better discussion on these points. Again, I say I'll try my best to answer your questions, and I learn a lot from you people also. Okay, so what I say, together we can create workplaces, communities, and networks where everyone feel respected and free from harassment. That's only my contribution to the society as a part of this whole thing. Okay, so that's how I end up here. Still we have time, and I feel now I will have certain questions or discussions with regard
Yes,
to
ma'am.
this
I
thing.
think we can take some questions now. So
Yes,
any
sure.
participants, yes, can raise their.
I feel not only questions, but I feel now it's a platform. I wish that if there are certain incidences you came across, you just try to contribute. You know, it's like something where you will also be able to speak. Is there something which the participant, intentionally, I don't want to bombard so many things on you, but by mujhe, I am having this much time and I have to speak. No, it should not be one way. I request you people also to bring out something which is in your mind with regard to these things. So can I have
There are
someone?
some questions in the chat box. Amit, if you'd like to read out, otherwise
So
we'll go.
Priyanshu ma'am has asked, what will be the workplace for a full-time YouTuber or social media influencer if she is sexual remarks over internet or getting direct messages?
Priyanshu ma'am, again, I'll just add over here that workplace, whenever it is coming to raising a question, then I always say we have a elaborative thing that is related to she box also, okay, where we just don't segregate what exactly the workplace is, okay. If anybody is facing such problem, they can just file a complaint in a she box, and a cognizance will be taken out of that thing, and there's a proper mechanism which has been followed with regard to this matter. Okay, so broadly, we go by this thing. Again, I tell you, a clear picture will be brought in the next session also. Let me keep something where you can just hold on for our next sessions also.
There are other questions are also there. So we
Yes,
will
yeah.
keep
I'll
this.
just have a look on that. Okay.
So next is Shreya ma'am has asked, is POSH Act also applicable to prostitutes?
It is again, I say it's not about differentiating anyone. It's applicable to everyone. Women, just take it in a elaborative way. Women. Okay, so it's not about what profession you are holding or what things you are trying to bring in. Again, that is one of the major thing which I will specific. It will be applicable to everyone. Again,
Naren,
just let
yes,
me
ma'am.
only check it out now rather than reading you going or scrolling through it.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay, men's eyes roving over your body repeatedly. It's an question that has been brought in by Dr. Aarti. They kept talking with you, but the eyes are running over you. Will this be a sexual harassment? Obviously, if you are uncomfortable with these gestures, that will always be amounting to a bring it as a part of sexual harassment. Best part of the law is that we don't see here what was the intention of a person doing it. The best part is that how or what I am feeling by the act of a man, that will always be taken into consideration. And Aarti ma'am, I hope that I have cleared you or your question with regard to this part. Okay, and again, I think some of them have also written something with regard to this point. Just let me check it out. What is sexual harassment has been brought in by Himanshu. I say there are other sessions where you will get a detailed thing about what sexual harassment is. Proactive measures or to prevent our viewpoint. Very good to this. Ideologies. I feel reading this all things, I feel ki okay, people are there who have a broader perspective with regard to the culprit. Sir, we should say that there are so many things which are contributed by our participants, and I really feel so happy observing this thing that everybody has given their input. One more thing, one question is there. Can a man be protected under the POSH Act if he faces harassment? Obviously, till now we are not talking broadly about these laws, but uh, if you people know, we are even having a aspect where we are trying to amend certain things with regard to none, and I feel ki it's a high time now where we will get amendments with regard to this point. And I always say men will always be protected if they follow the POSH Act very actively rather than following these all things. We should know what are our limits and what are the things we are going to bring in. If there is no gender neutral policy and there is a third gender case, so how to deal with that? That is one of the lacuna which is seen in this act, and we are dealing with this thing also. To the composition. Okay, practical aspect with regard to the composition of IC and the training which are provided. This is one of the question. It does not directly fall under my this session, but I'll just tell you the act itself has provided that who should be a part of a committee, how the committee is to be formed, and what are the major things that should be taken into consideration to form the ICC. Okay, so even what should be the number of the members, how the members or from which area the members should be, external member, everything has been part of a rules and act. Okay, so that will again be dealt in the next session. How is confidentiality maintained during the inquiry process under that? I have been a part of a inquiry processes, and I will just tell you there is a clause where if you violate any kind of confidentiality, a breach of confidentiality, then obviously action will be taken against that particular person. We have also taken actions against few people in when we were dealing with these matters. So this is one thing, the confidentiality is maintained and a proper attention is given to result by masking the name, by taking all the precautions that are dealing with this points. Okay. Okay, ma'am, don't you feel that women sometimes becomes tools of sexual harassment? Okay, then again, I won't be biased because again, but I would say yes, sometimes that is one of the major thing. It's a question coming from Narendra Kumar. Again, that is the reason I told you, if you observe this thing, मैंने beginning में एक चीज कही थी, it's not about men or women. It's about the perspective you hold as a man and woman. So only the message I will give you, it's not if I am aware, मुझे पता है भाई this is the thing which is going to cause or create certain problems. I will always be aware about this thing and I will never proceed with such kind of activities. So it's equally a responsibility of a woman also to see that whether really that thing is falling. They should never use it as a tool. Being a woman, I'm telling this to everyone over here that this is something. Let the cause be there. Let the cause be pious when you are talking about the laws, and laws will be very good when you try to implement them in this point. Let me check out if there are any questions. Okay. Kalpesh sir, I think that majority
Yes,
of
sir.
the questions.
Sure. Participant, please hold your questions because we have some more days. Otherwise, program will end today or tomorrow. Sure.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much.
So
Yes,
that's
sir.
it. I think it should be short and crisp. I don't want to enlarge it only for the sake because I have to. Okay, so
Sure.
that's how sir end here. Over to you,
Yeah.
Amit.
Yeah, over to
Yes,
Amit.
thank you so much, ma'am. I think the best part about this session was that there are so many queries, questions, including compliments which are pouring in this chat box, and I am happy to see all these participation from the participants. So thank you so much, ma'am. This was really a wonderful exposition of understanding sexual harassment at workplace. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for sparing valuable time. And I also thank the participants for participating very enthusiastically in this session. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you.